Well, it was an eventful week one of college football. A lot of blowouts, a couple of pretty big upsets, including the number nine team in the country. We also saw last week the ACC make a couple of expansion moves with California, Stanford, and SMU being added next year. This is two guys on mic, Connor Bailey.
Ken and Gerald.
And let's just lead the show off with that. ACC makes some moves. Quick thoughts. What do you think about it?
I like it a lot. I say I like it a lot now that I'm thinking about it. It's okay. I like SMU
Yeah,
a
I like
lot.
SMU a lot.
For sure. From an academic standpoint, it's all right. From an every single other sport than football, it's a pretty okay move. I'm kind of a traditionalist. I think conferences should kind of be geographical.
Right.
So
FM
obviously that
rivalry.
doesn't really make me extremely excited, but I think kind of the ACC just doing any any kind of maneuvers they can to ensure that they don't dissipate.
Yeah, I agree with that. They're planning to lose Clemson, Florida State, maybe even North Carolina. I like SMU. I think they could be a sleeping giant in college football,
Yeah.
but it's just a preventative move.
A couple of them at I don't know who Cal plays this week, but Stanford's at what Southern Cal, and then Southern Methodist is at Oklahoma. So
Yeah, and Cal plays Auburn,
yeah,
so a couple big matchups.
big matchups for the ACC.
Yeah, yeah, ACC. Next announcement. Let's announce where we're going this weekend. Road tour.
All right,
We
yeah,
got a
you
lot
want
of
to do
big
that?
games. Bama,
You,
Texas.
you want to do the honors?
Yeah. We're gonna be at Charleston Southern at Clemson this weekend. Most underrated game of the week after the Clemson offensive performance. So, are we going to see an upset this weekend?
I don't think so. I hope not.
Yeah, I hope not as well.
We're only favored, or Clemson's only favored by 22. Which, if you would have told me at the beginning of the year or 3 years ago, I would have told you you're insane. But
Yeah,
oh, how the mighty have fallen, I guess.
we're going to talk about that later in the episode. Let's go ahead and get into some games now. Colorado TCU, great first week for Dion. We've had full belief in Dion. I just
Yeah.
didn't think it was going to happen this early.
I agree, and even I think one of our last episodes we talked about the culture thing. Maybe we were wrong.
I think we
You
were.
know what I mean? I think that we were thinking that it might work, but it won't have immediate success.
Yeah.
But no, he had immediate success, I would say, and some.
If you haven't seen the pregame locker room hype talk from Dion, you got to watch it. They played with energy. That offense is going to be legit. Shadur Sanders is a legit QB. Travis Hunter's the best player in the country.
Yeah, by far.
He's the best. He's a generational, not just football player, but athlete in general.
Yep.
He played, was it 110?
I think it was something like that.
It was over 100 snaps on
I saw
both sides of the ball.
I saw a graphic today. It was more than the top 5 people who put the most snaps in the 7 overtime LSU Texas A&M
That's
played.
insane.
So, yeah.
Enjoy it while we can.
Yeah, Travis Hunter is something else. I think it's kind of refreshing to see the connection him and Dion have.
Yeah.
I just think it's kind of taking the entire country by storm. Shadur Sanders obviously saying that he didn't really see much difference in the FCS and FBS, and what I'm kind of thinking is I think this Colorado team really might be the breakthrough that the sport needs to kind of give guys that play at a lesser level some attention. Because if these guys can come out and compete at any level, then I think it's just going to expand the draft process.
Yeah, I agree. We'll have Colorado picks in the next episode, but they could get off to a really hot start and make some noise in the Pac-12. We'll come back to games in a second, but speaking of the Pac-12, they're the best conference in football this year.
Yeah,
I believe.
It's
I think
looking
they're
like
6
it.
national contenders, starting with Oregon, Southern Cal, Utah looked really gritty, looked really good. UCLA with Dante Moore started to figure things out late in their game against Coastal. Oregon State with DJU looked good, and then we're not even mentioning Washington, who it took them a while to get going,
Yeah.
but they
Once they got
surrounded
going,
Boise
they got
State.
going.
Yeah. So they're going to be the most competitive conference. They're going to be the best conference.
And I think a lot of that goes down to what we said in our preview. It's the best quarterback conference, not even close.
Yeah, I mean, they just all played great.
And
DJU looked way better than he did.
All those teams you mentioned were just examples of amazing quarterback games on Saturday, and kind of think it's what you need.
If we keep looking away, we tried to negotiate with the NFL to move their Thursday night football game back, but they told us no. So
scheduling conflict. So unfortunately,
we got the game on in the background.
And Jared Goff just fumbled on a. Oh.
Well, that was the tight end's fault.
Yeah.
Going back to games now, though, we got to talk about Florida State and LSU. I'm very eager to jump on the Florida State hype train, and I'm very slow to jump on the LSU unhype train. I think we got to find a healthy balance between both. Florida State looked really good. Jordan Travis looked really good. Keon Coleman might be the second best receiver in the country.
Jaheim Bell.
Jaheim Bell played really good. That running game looked really good. The defense looked really good. Florida State just played a complete game. Brian Kelly knows she's got some work to do, but remember they lost last year to Florida State and ended up going to the SEC championship. So, there were some questions in that secondary. Those questions came true. They got all season to work them out. Um, Florida State's by far the clear front runner in the ACC now.
I would say Florida State's the clear front runner in the country. I think that week one was a lot of games where a lot of teams I thought were going to look amazing just simply didn't. Florida State's really the one team I would say that overblew my expectations. Yeah. I think they came out firing on every single cylinder. And I just kind of think it's another example of where college football is going with the transfer portal.
Yeah.
I think if there's any clear takeaway from week one, it's how much the transfer portal matters.
Yeah. I think we're going to talk about that a little bit later as well. But, we did talk about early ACC preview. Florida State, the depth is a concern in terms of the total season, but the way they played last night, if they get, a B- off of that effort every week, they're going to go undefeated this year. Next game, UNC versus South Carolina. I picked South Carolina. You picked North Carolina.
I did.
North Carolina ended up winning. Drake May played good. The offense looked a little slow at times, a little stagnant.
Slow, but kind of like what you were saying during the game. It was refreshing to see them not have to rely on Drake May throwing over 45 passes a game. It looked like they were running the ball with not ease but effectively.
That they have not had.
Exactly. So I kind of think that takes the pressure off Drake May, and I think overall they had an amazing performance. I mean, what was it, 8, 9 sacks?
9 sacks. That I said the game pick. I didn't believe the hype for that UNC defense. Even if it's just the fact that South Carolina does not have a good offensive line, you don't just get 9 sacks. That defense played electric. And speaking of the South Carolina offensive line, that is a major concern for South Carolina this year.
I think that's probably the worst offensive line performance I've ever seen in my life. But try not to be all negative here. Spencer Rather looked amazing.
He did. He looked really good.
He looked leaps and bounds better than where he was at this time last season. I mean, he went 30 for 39, 330 yards.
And he was playing off his back.
Exactly.
The whole time.
So I think I really, really liked what I saw from Spencer Rather. Xavier Leggett had the game of his life.
Yeah, he's a really good player.
You get Juice Wells back on that field, have a full offense going, maybe get some of those running backs going. It'll be interesting to see where their season goes from here. I did not really understand and like why they had Luke Doty running routes. I don't understand the point of that.
I don't know if they were trying to throw off with like a little double pass action, but Luke Doty should not be playing receiver. You got to carry on Joyner if you want to do that.
Exactly.
South Carolina has a brutal stretch, man. They go to Georgia next week. They've got Mississippi State. Is it the week after?
Yep.
That's a lot of talent on the D-line. I hate saying it. You're looking at a 1-4 start as a Carolina fan if that offensive line doesn't quickly improve. Dowell Loggins, I think he's a good hire. He's got to get Trey Knox more involved, and he's got to scheme up a way to get the ball out quicker. Speaking of another kind of lackluster offensive performance, Ohio State, Indiana, 23-3. It was 10-3 at half, and
I think
it could have been 7-3.
Yeah, definitely. Game reminded me a lot of Ohio State's game last year in Northwestern. This game wasn't affected by weather as much as that game was, but you just kind of, I don't know if it was uncertainty out of a QB1 for Ohio State, but you could tell he was just not comfortable the first 4 or 5 drives.
Yeah.
I think he really settled in, and Indiana did a surprisingly good job containing Trayvon Henderson.
Yeah, they did.
At first, the other running back kind of got it going for a little bit, but slow start to Ohio State, but at the time I wanted to react about it, but I think Ohio State does this every year.
Yeah. You got to think about C.J. Stroud 2 years ago. They struggled to win games, put away games. Trust Ryan Day. If anybody deserves benefit of the doubt outside of like Lincoln Riley, it's Ryan Day.
100%.
I think the point we should take away here is Ohio State won a game with defense. When's the last time outside of that Northwestern game, which I don't really even count because weather affected Northwestern too. When's the last time Ohio State's won a game because of their defense?
Yeah.
So I was impressed by that. I don't think Devin Brown's out of the QB race yet.
I don't either.
But I fully expect Ohio State to be up there. They got to figure it out quick, though, because they go to Notre Dame in 3 weeks. A couple of other teams to note, Georgia and Alabama replacing QBs as well. Georgia started off slow.
Yeah, they definitely did. But I'm not worried about Georgia at all. You got Brock Bowers back there.
Yeah.
You got Kirby Smart. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
I think UT Martin, although they were a competitive foe, Kind of expected Georgia to take care of business, and that's what they did. Concerning out of Tuscaloosa, at least for me, Jalen Monroe had several flashes where he looked amazing. Um, but he never looked like he controlled the offense with a lot of dominance that I expected out of Alabama.
Yeah.
And right now, I'm gonna write that off as it's week one, and learning the system, getting used to being the starter, and
Yeah.
everything like that. But not exactly the strongest start that I wanted. I know it can be start. I know it could have been a lot worse. I mean, I don't know they were playing Middle Tennessee also, so it's not that big of a deal. But he didn't look exactly as good as I thought he would.
He didn't look as good. The running game looked really good.
Yeah.
That offensive line was really good. You can expect them to lean on that.
Yeah,
against Texas
for sure.
State. Also, that defense played with an intensity they didn't play with last year. They were flying to the ball. They were hitting hard. So that's a good sign if you're a Bama fan. A lot of people question that Kevin Steele hire at DC. I just say trust Nick Saban. He's earned every single benefit of the doubt. Penn State played West Virginia. They had bad beat of the week, scoring a late TD to cover the spread. Drew Alar looked really good.
Yep.
Their receiving core, they had a couple of guys stand out. Don't know his name. He's got one of those 3-name last names, but he played really good. Running game got going. That offensive line's got to step up a little bit, and that defensive line's got to step up a little bit. But I was really impressed with what I saw at Penn State as well.
Yeah, I was kind of impressed what I saw out of West Virginia too. I mean, this was a team that I thought was going to probably be bottom 3 in the Big 12, and they fought for two and a half quarters. Yeah. So props out to West Virginia. I hope it's not just a week one rivalry kind of thing, and hope they continue the season they could have.
Yeah. So we flew through these games because we got a lot to talk about with this next game. We got to talk about Clemson Duke, and this one's hard to talk about because man, we got a lot to say.
Yeah.
And we got a lot to say from two different perspectives. I think we got a lot to say as a fan, which we'll do. We'll give the biased opinion of it, and then from a more analyst style perspective. But before we do that, you got to give a congratulations to Duke, Mike Elko, Riley Leonard. They didn't even play an A+ game. I don't even know if they played an A- game because they committed a lot of a lot of false starts and penalties. They had some sloppy plays. They muffed a punt, and they still won the game. Riley Leonard's the real deal. Yep. He played really good. He's going to be a first-round QB, in my opinion, this year if he keeps that up. He made plays through the air. He made plays on the ground with his legs. He never looked unpoised. He never let the moment get to him either. And I think he could end up being, a better version of Daniel Jones, potentially.
I agree.
So great game from the Duke Blue Devils. Regardless of how Clemson's season ends, that is a career-defining win and a program-changing win for Duke. I hope Mike Elko stays at Duke. It's going to be hard for them to keep him there. Hopefully they can figure out a way to do it. But great win to them. I think we should start out with a fan reaction to Clemson, and then we'll try to be more level-headed about it. My first thought was, what happened to all of the off-season hype?
Yeah, I think we're on the same line there. Coming out first drive was three runs, and then Cade throws a ball that probably should have been picked off over the middle to Jake Brenningstool. PTSD instantly that I thought might have been fixed throughout the game. Wasn't. Yeah. As a fan, you're sitting here scratching your head, really sitting back and realizing you just scored 7 points against a good and above average Duke defense. Don't get me wrong, but
it's Duke. We had 56, 4 and 5. They had 2. We heard all offseason, Jake Brenningstool involved in the offense. The freshman receivers were making plays. Bo Collins was making plays. Antonio Williams was making plays. The passing game looked smooth. The offensive line was much improved. And then we heard that the defense, looked like they were going to be playing under a coordinator with a year of experience now. And we saw ball security issues that were there all last season. I think last year against Miami, Clemson fumbled the ball 5 times. Yep. We just happened to recover
4 of them.
4 of them, yeah. Ball security issues were still there. Somehow we, looked like we forgot how to tackle, which I haven't seen at Clemson in, ever since I started seriously watching Clemson football.
Yeah, I think a big part of the defense coming into it too was, all eyes on the 2 best linebackers in the conference and
maybe the country.
Yeah, and I don't want to seem coy or superficial, but I wasn't exactly super duper impressed with them. I think they started the game off a little bit sluggish, and eventually Barrett Carter had some, good hits at the line that stopped runs, but I feel like they got beat a lot of times underneath in the middle of the field where they didn't usually.
We missed a sack on Riley Leonard that turned into a 44-yard
44-yard
touchdown run.
touchdown.
And another thing to note was last year, and I credited this to just year one of being a coordinator for the first time. Not even just coordinator, being an on the field coach for the first time with Wes Goodwin. He had been in the box as an analyst. But there was just a lack of adjustment on the defensive side of the ball last year in game. We saw that against Wake Forest. We saw it against Notre Dame. I thought we saw it against South Carolina and Tennessee.
Yep.
And I think we saw it again last night. I don't know how many plays I watched where it was at least 4 or 5, which may not seem like a lot, but when they were 40 or 50-yard gains on a halfback wheel route or a tight end check down, at what point do we start covering that?
Yeah.
So those are the things I took away.
As a fan, I think the main concern, the main thing that scares me moving forward is the lack of care that appears. Obviously, I don't know what goes on. I assume this loss affects them, but
Yeah.
it seems like there's an extreme lack of urgency on the
Yeah.
entire team, especially in the wide receiver group.
Yeah.
Antonio Williams, he's a nice little yards after catch guy. He's proven to be useful, even though he's dropping some passes. But I just feel like that's the name of the game with this Clemson wide receiver group is dropping passes.
Yeah, we had a lot of drops.
Yeah. Cade looked like I wanted to say a freshman quarterback. He's not a freshman. He played in 10 games last year. But he didn't look poised as Riley Leonard did by any means.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of the miscues were him. I think the first fumble down there on the 2-yard line on the option play was him. It looked like the running back. You don't know who messed that up, but I just feel like he's going to have to take a step and reevaluate maybe some of the decisions he makes.
Yeah, I'm in the fan perspective here, and then kind of piggyback off of what you were saying about Cade. This felt like it was this to me was a worse loss than the West Virginia game.
Yeah.
What was that? 13 years ago,
Yeah,
or
in the
11 or
Orange
12 years
Bowl.
ago. Yeah, that was a 73 to 27 game.
I think it was
like that.
32.
32.
Yeah.
It was something like that. To me, this was worse because that was at the bowl game. We got a whole season left to watch this. So moving on from being a fan, first talk about Cade Klubnik. He had a couple of moments where he made some just spectacular plays and some spectacular throws, but man, the ugly was really bad.
Yeah.
You mentioned the Jake Briningstool overthrow. The read just wasn't there.
No.
We had an open guy on the right side. B, the pass wasn't there either.
No.
It went straight. It was a great play by Briningstool to knock the ball out.
Thankfully the pass was as bad as it was, or that ball's getting probably taken for 6 the other way.
Yeah. The ugly was really bad. He overthrew a screen pass the next drive. Not just overthrew it, but that ball was yards over. I think it was Bo Collins maybe head, and Bo Collins is a tall receiver.
Yeah.
I watched this guy earlier today because I just wanted to get his take on it. He scouts basically for a living now, and he was talking about Cade Klubnik. Kind of the same thing we said. He mentioned the slide play, how you just you gotta have awareness on the field. Yeah. He mentioned some of the overthrows. He mentioned some of the lack of poise in the pocket. But one thing he did mention too was this was not Cade Klubnik's fault. Although the fumble on the goal line was his fault when he failed to pull the ball out of Will Shipley's arms. There were several plays in that game. Most notably, I don't know if you remember the rollout pass to Antonio Williams that was dropped. But we had receivers and tight ends running a completely different play than what appeared to be called. That play where that happened, our receiver close to the line on the left side of the field was blocking for a screen pass on the left, and our tight end rolled out like he was blocking for a screen on the right, and then it was like they figured out that the play was wrong, and they just kind of freestyle. And that happened several times throughout the game. That's not on Cade. That's when Cade had to make plays, and he tried to make some plays, but he can only do so much. That kind of comes down to the big issue with me was our receiver talent just was not there, and it has not been there for 3 or 4 years now.
Nope.
And as a fan and as an analyst, the comments made by Dabo Swinney talking about how he doesn't think the portal affected that loss in any way is just very, very concerning. Going and getting a playmaker at receiver would have been a huge, huge addition to the team. What do you think? Where does Clemson football go from here?
Well, first step to remain successful is Dabo has got to become complacent with the transfer portal.
Yeah.
Times are changing. I understand, I'm not the biggest fan of it, but especially, we saw Colorado, we saw Florida State, we saw us.
Yeah.
Transfer portal matters, and it's all the more evident now. Over the offseason, we got a lot of hype on the offense because of the Garrett Riley signing, but if you're not going to change anything or recruit actual guys, and that's just a band-aid on a bullet hole. It seems like what we have right now in the wide receiver rooms are just a lot of guys to do the same thing.
Yeah.
I think it's very hard for an offensive coordinator
To scheme.
to scheme with just three guys that are slants or crosses or something like
Yeah.
that. They're yard after the catch kind of guys. The identity of Clemson football receivers have been go up and get it guys. I mean, T. Higgins, Deion Kane, Martavis Bryant, Mike Williams, DeAndre Hopkins,
Stretching
Sammy
the field,
Watkins.
speed.
And it's just something that we're really lacking right now. And as a fan, it's kind of been weird watching Clemson games like it because it's almost like we're missing our offensive identity. We look lost out there trying to regain something that we don't have. Uh, Going forward, though, what I think really needs to happen is a lot of variety on offense. I think something that we do that kind of struggles is we get in moods. So we'll run the ball for a couple straight plays, and then I feel like when we want to air it out, we'll do the same type of pass play, whether that's a screen or like a bubble screen or something like that.
Yeah.
And then if we want to take it over the field, then we might try it once or twice. I feel like Dabo really has to kind of get aggressive early in drives, maybe throw the ball on first and second down, and that way we can give it to Shipley in a situation to put us at a better spot for third down.
Yeah.
Kind of make that more attackable. Same thing with fourth down, but I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with a lot that you just said about not being able to scheme. Garrett Riley can only do what he can. Clemson has 2 games against cupcake opponents, for lack of a better word. And I don't care what the score is. I don't care if it's 17. If we score 17 against Charleston Southern or Florida Atlantic, I need to see players being used in
Yeah.
different spots on the field. I know Jake Brink still isn't a fast guy because he's a tight end. I need to see him go down the field just to see if he can use his body to catch a ball and bring it in, just to get some kind of vertical threat. I need to see Tyler Brown, the true freshman receiver, being used way, way more than he was. He made a couple of really big plays, or a couple of nice routes, a couple of nice grabs. And I want to see Jarvis Green, the true freshman running back, come in. I think we lack breakaway speed
Yeah.
at all playmaker positions.
But
I think, especially running back
Yeah.
too. I think Jarvis Green has that. I mean, he was South Carolina Player of the Year for high school football. He wasn't very recruited,
Yeah.
but we can at least try him. We
I
can
think
keep his red shirt.
I think he ran for over 2,000, 3,000 yards last year as a high school senior.
That's insane.
Yeah, I really agree with what you said. One thing that, Shipley or Maffa, they'll get out there, they'll break tackles, they'll shift a guy, but you're right. They're really not going to explode for the long run. And I think that is something that we miss out on. I mean,
Yeah.
Maffa exploded for a 30, 40-yard run down the most exciting play for us. And, you have a guy with a little bit more speed, that's 6.
2 or 3 years ago, we had Travis Etienne breaking, a 98-yard run.
Yeah.
Where he just hit the sideline and then just went. And we don't have that at Clemson anymore. That's enough about the offense, though. I mean,
you could go on.
We're really about to find out what we can be in week 4 against Florida State. They got to figure stuff out by then. Defensively, the big thing besides what we already talked about, for the first time in 45 games, Clemson's defense did not have a sack. We did have 8 QB pressures, but man, that's just weird to see. Not only, Clemson got out-sacked by Duke, but we didn't even record a sack against Duke.
It's insane, and I think the biggest thing on the line is we're missing that leader. You look at a guy like Xavier Thomas, who this is his 5th or 6th year on the team, and you expect him to kind of go up and lead the team, but him dealing with injuries, he might not have the experience or something like that. I think the 2 most impressive guys on the line,
true freshmen.
Peter
Woods and TJ Parker, man.
TJ Parker, I had about 4 or 5 different people texting me, asking me who he was, where'd he come from.
He was a 4-star. He played lights out.
I mean, I feel like what did you say? We had 8 quarterback pressures.
I feel like he was 50% of them at least.
So the D line, I think, it's a little concerning with no sacks. I expect that to obviously change. I don't know though. Like again, I just think we kind of lack a leader. We've always
Henry,
had,
KJ Henry is a big loss. I agree with that.
Just a guy that's been there and has the championship culture and the Power Ranger culture and
loves Clemson.
Been there through it. Yeah.
I agree with that. So Clemson's going to go 2-1 over the next 3 weeks. We're going to finish 2-1 over the next 3 weeks, and after that, I'm not ready to punt the ball on Clemson's season.
Yeah.
A lot of people say some people say Clemson should have won that game. I disagree.
Yep.
I think Clemson could have won that game.
Yep.
And I think that's where the big difference is. you get to the inside the 10 4 times, you come away with 7 points. You're in a chance to win and you don't capitalize. That doesn't mean you should win. That means you could win.
Yep.
I think Clemson's going to be able to win in every single game they play, including Florida State at home and Notre Dame at home and North Carolina and South Carolina. But every game is going to be a dogfight. Outside of Charleston Southern and Florida Atlantic, there's not a single game that I look at. I'm like,
Easy
well, that's
win.
a win.
Yeah.
Even Wake Forest, man. I'm not. Dave Clawson knows how to play us. That offensive system seems to give us trouble every year. I'm scared about Syracuse the week after Florida State as a fan. They looked really impressive. We're about to see them play Western Michigan this week, and then they play Purdue, I believe.
Yep,
next
I think
week.
that's right.
So this could be a really long season.
Yep.
For Clemson.
I think they have a lot that they can figure out fast, but I think the main thing in the locker room at Clemson needs to be don't panic because, you have 2 weeks to kind of get things going, maybe get the wheels turning a little bit. Florida State is an intimidating game. Like I said earlier, right now they played like the best team in the country.
Yeah.
But you win that game, your season's right back alive.
You can make the playoffs if you beat Florida State and win out.
Your season is right back alive, and I think it's the kind of game that you need to get the team back going. So I think it still could potentially come out to be something out of nothing.
Yeah, and I like what you said earlier this week. What if Duke is just like that team and they end up running? I mean, I don't think that's going to happen, but what if they are? Clemson decides to win out, fix things offensively, and we rematch Duke in like the ACC championship. This loss looks a lot different.
Yep.
I think this loss will look a little bit different at the end of the season. Everybody was picking the Duke upset, and then when they actually did it, it's oh, how do you lose to Duke?
Yeah.
I hate that mentality, and it doesn't just happen to Clemson; it happens to every single big team. But I think the loss will look a little bit different. It's certainly ugly. There's a lot of mistakes that can be fixed. It's just how quickly can Dabo and company fix them. But I think the big thing is you're gonna have to put Band-Aids on this year, regardless of the outcome, regardless if Clemson makes the playoffs or not. The portal's got to be used.
Yeah.
The portal's got to be used. I'm not asking for a roster overhaul. I'm asking for a Keon Coleman at receiver, or a rotational defensive end to give us some more depth. But that's enough talking about that disappointment of a game. You know who wasn't disappointing this week, though?
Who would that be?
Robert Longerbeam, corner at Rutgers.
It's almost like we called it.
Yeah.
First game of the season, he already has an interception.
Yeah.
Marked it up on path to what will probably be the single season interception record, if I had to guess. Should be exciting to watch his season.
That Rutgers secondary, kind of talented.
Yeah, pretty deadly.
They could be a sleeper team in the Big Ten this year. Marvin Harrison, they get going against Indiana.
Yeah.
He's going to have some legit corners on him against Rutgers. But that's our week 1 reaction. It's coming out a little bit late. Had some stuff going on this week. Either tomorrow or Saturday morning, we'll have a week 2
prediction
special going on. A lot of good games this week.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff to talk about.
Loaded week.
Might give some locks out. Might give our own parlay out.
Yep.
It was a good week 1 of football. Some of the games weren't that great, but we saw a lot out of teams that we expected to see a lot of, and we didn't see a lot of teams that we expected to see a lot of too. And I'm thinking week 2 is going to be even better with a little bit higher quality.
100%.
So thank you all for watching. Week 2 coming out soon.